So keep in mind this idea of a legal self, a legal identity, a legal person, and the natural person. You are the natural person. You are flesh and blood. You're real. You exist. Legal person does not. It's just a piece of paper, documentation, whatever it may be. And that's what really all these laws and jurisdiction are governing. As you can see, you're born and you're governed by only natural rights. And then at some point, there has to be a contract. There has to be something that binds you to the jurisdiction. Otherwise, you'd only be bound to the jurisdiction of God. And quite frankly, none of the Rothschilds and none of the media and none of the politicians today look anything like God, nor do they act like it. And I mean, on top of that, you can throw in, the concept that a corporation only acts in the interest of its shareholders. Well, the shareholders are obviously looking for monetary gain when it comes to a corporation. So it's okay for them to be sociopathic and a psychopathic whenever they actually apply their goals to the real world. So they're justified in saying, "Oh, we bombed a whole village, but we gained a whole province worth of trading, and that's actually in the interest of the shareholders." So therefore, it's only judging itself by the laws which it created. So it's kind of like a referee refereeing the game he's playing in. It's complete conflict of interest, and that's kind of the misconception that everybody gets, is that there's all this pretty wording that goes along with everything that people can't follow. They don't know how to dig deeper, and so we end up doing things like creating a indentured slavery system where people are unknowingly signing their rights away to work for their entire lifetimes in the name of the debt of their government that they're supposedly a member of. And it just doesn't make any sense. So from a common sense point of view, you say, well, I was born, and I was born without country. I was born without master other than the creator. And then somewhere down the road, there had to be paperwork filed that said that you were no longer that. There had to be an agreement that you entered into to give away those things. And that's what this whole project's about. It's all about digging up the truth about how you, in fact, became a pawn, a slave, nothing more than a mule. Though mules probably have more dignity. Here's the very basics on how the legal person works. Upon signing the birth certificate, the certification of live birth, you are unknowingly consenting to a contractual agreement with the government corporation. Just as with whenever ships would make birth onto land in the days of the British Empire, we're still currently in, each piece of cargo represented something of value, and so they would give documentation, a promissory note, that described all the legal attributes of it, its physical characteristics, so on and so forth, and gave it a receipt number. That is exactly what they're doing whenever you were born with your birth certificate. And now it's of legal value, and with the security agreement, they essentially start selling you on the stock market, so to speak. And I found some proof to that, and other than the fact that the birth certificate is in fact on banknote, it's same company, it's on the same paper, and it's by legal definition is a note containing value that can be traded and used as money. So I mean, yeah, that's your call. If anybody figures it out for sure and can find like actual rock solid proof, let me know. So where's the deception? You assume that the legal person is identical to and one and the same to the natural person. This is the fraud. According to the legal maxim, those that may be deceived, let them be deceived. You are essentially volunteering to participate out of not knowing the truth about your own natural rights. And it is your burden to exercise and know your rights. So don't volunteer, do not consent, and identify yourself as separate from the legal identity that which was created for you. Because you do not know that there is a separation between the fictional legal person and the natural person, you have been volunteering to be subject to the obligations and rights issued to the legal person. Only once you claim your rights as the natural person do you separate yourself from the laws and rules the legal person is controlled by. So basically, that's the big ruse. You've been identifying with this legal identity that was created for you and on behalf of you, and you've been choosing to stand in for it, just like a lawyer or a CEO. Just like a CEO is not held responsible for his company's actions necessarily, the same way you have to deem yourself now a company in a way that you're now the representation of your legal person, your legal company, legal corporation, etc., etc., etc. How is it fraud? Well, in order for a contract to be binding and in good faith, all persons bound to the contract must be allowed full disclosure and be notified of the impending consequences and the intended consequences of entering into the contract. Merely by being aware of this entitles you to reclaim the ownership of the legal person via the Universal Commercial Code form and a security agreement which details the reasons and explanation for how the agreement made via the birth certificate was indeed not made in good faith, nor were all obligations explained through full disclosure. You have what's called a priority claim to the bond as the natural person, but only after you recognize yourself as the natural person and you recognize yourself under civil law, common law, whatever it may be considered. Now, this fraud goes even deeper than this, because they're creating debt in your name. They're not creating money. They're creating something for somebody to negotiate with and bargain with and tool around with, and that's just not that's not legal in any way, shape, or form. You're no different than being a black man coming over on the ship, only you're birthed right here. I guess it's time to take back the world, huh? Just remember this stuff when you're in court.